It's been a long time since you've heard this, but I think it's time.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
It has been quite a while since you've heard the soundbite, and I like to have fun. I like to have fun. That's what this channel is about. It's about me being a fan and about me having fun in doing so, talking about our Detroit Lions. But I think we all have come to the conclusion, or most of us, that it is time for the Detroit Lions to move on from James Houston. And maybe keeping him was a mistake. Now, it must have been something that the coaching staff saw in James Houston as to why they kept him. I have my thoughts, and I will express them to you. I think that James Houston was kept as potential trade bait. And the lone thing that the Detroit Lions have working for them is what he did in 2022. Dan Campbell was on 97 Won the Ticket last week. It was actually a video that I was going to talk about. And they asked him basically why James Houston wasn't playing. And he said, well, the guys ahead of him are playing better than him, that they're playing better football. And then they would love to get James involved, but he can't pull somebody. James has to basically work his way up to playing. Okay. Right now, he's not doing that. Now, we wind up keeping James, and I think that we are going to leverage James Houston as trade bait. That's what I think. James Houston, we know what he can do. If he's put in the right position with the right scheme, I think he can do something. I don't think he's going to magically become this elite pass rusher, okay? But what he can do is if he can get past you, he has one move. It's called speed. He has a little bit of bend, but excuse me, his move is speed. And I think that you guys are finally starting to come over to where I'm at. A lot of people in the comment section were saying yesterday how James Houston was getting ragged out. I tried to tell y'all that. James Houston was 245 last year. I don't know what his weight is this year. To put that in perspective, Hutch last year had 20 pounds more than had 20 pounds on James. James has the ability, if he can't get behind you or get around you, he's going to get manhandled. That was another word that was being used yesterday, was manhandled. But we already knew that stuff about James. But why is this a topic now? Well, it is a topic for two reasons. Yes, two reasons. Let's do this one first. I hope I have the other one. Here is the snap count from yesterday. This is the snap count from yesterday, and we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. James Houston had 14 snaps on defense, which was 16%. And out of those 14 snaps, he had 2 penalties. One was a hold, I believe, and one was a offsides. It could be because he doesn't play. It could be because he's rusty. It could be all of those things. Or it could just be because he's not as good as we thought, right? He's not as good as we thought, or some of you thought that he was. Now, on top of the 14% snaps, or the 14 snaps, 16%, he also had the lowest PFF grade of last night's Detroit Lions team. Now, I am not very big on PFF, meaning they haven't done anything to me, but the number, I don't know how they come up with their numbers. And I think for me to have to really appreciate numbers, and they got this very complicated number system, I need to know how you get there. Because to me, it seems like you can have a great game, but you had a mediocre game or a miserable game. I'm sure Jared Goff, I wouldn't be surprised if his PFF grade was bottom 10. I just don't know what metric they use. So, but a lot of you guys look at PFF. And if I'm not mistaken, put in the comment section below. It's been 4 games, and this is the second time that James Houston has been the lowest graded Detroit Lion on the team. I could be wrong. I thought I saw this before. But if not, that's at least 1 out of 4 games. That's 25%. 25% of his time with the Detroit Lions. As a matter of fact, he was inactive for 1 game, right? So that's actually 33%. And if he was the lowest graded PFF person on the Detroit Lions, that's 66% of his time taking snaps. He was the lowest graded. Now, for those of you who put a lot of stock on that, that is a big deal. That's a big deal. And I think that whether you think Matthew Betts or Mitchell Agude or Isaac Ukwu, what do you think? Specifically Betts, he was an NFL player, knowing that another NFL team did not pick him up. That I don't think that really means what you think it means. There were 50 players picked up, maybe more, maybe a little bit less when cut down day happened and people were put through the waiver wire. 50 players out of over 1,800, I believe it is. There's a lot of NFL players, and a fraction was picked up. And all of those players aren't studs, right? And you could say the same thing about James Houston, that if he was put in the right position, then he could thrive. And maybe you're right. But I think the time has come for James Houston to get a change of scenery. Now, why do I think the Detroit Lions kept him as trade capital? Okay. James Houston is not a Detroit Lion after this year. If you're going to get anything for him, it's got to be this year. You got to make a move this year. There is a team somewhere that will take a James Houston. They might give you a conditional something pick for him. He might be here we go. This is why they kept him. Forget that. Throw that conditional out. That's a possibility, but throw that in the trash. Here's what I'm thinking. Trade deadline approaches. We need an elite, mid to elite tier edge rusher. I don't care how many teams have two elite pass rushers. I don't care how many have them. I want them. All right. That's what I want. And the Detroit Lions have an opportunity to do that. And I think you see by now, shout out to DJ Reader for the sack yesterday. If you're keeping track of the clown suit, we are 10 sacks from the defensive line. DJ Reader has played. He needs to play. I think he needs to play another 9 games, I believe, right? Because he played game 2, 3, and 4. So he has to play another 9 games. He has to get another sack, and the defensive line has to get, I think we went in yesterday's game with 9, and I think we got 2. We might have got 3, but I think one of them came from the defensive line, 1 or 2. So it's either 10 or 11 sacks. So we are very close, very close. We're about 33% into the clown suit. But here's what I think. This is what I think we're doing. Trade deadline comes. We need a pass rusher. It's time. It's time. I feel it in my bones. Like Tony Tones, man, I feel it. This is it. Now, I've whiffed before, but you know what? Forget it. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you know what? I'm taking this. Lions will trade for an elite edge rusher at the trade deadline. I think they're going to do that. James Houston will be part of that deal. They're going to trade away James Houston and a pick to give the team that is losing that pass rusher a body. And we're going to get a pass rusher. Now, I just saw yesterday that Trey Hendrickson got hurt. Now, there's some research. It turns out it's a stinger. Hopefully, he should be good to go next game. He was in the locker room, but I saw the word injured, and I was like, well, what we talking about here? But hopefully he's okay. There's another guy. As teams start to implode, you're going to see how big that week was pushing the trade deadline back. There's another guy. I don't know what the contract is, so I just start kind of spitballing here. Teams that are kind of in tank mode a little bit, quotation mark tank mode. I don't think any team tanks in the NFL. Keeping my eye on a guy like Jalen Phillips. You know what I'm saying? I think he's in year 3, right? Coming off an injury. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to be real. And Brad Holmes, he absolutely loves that. Like, I just say it. He does it. I say it. So a guy like Jalen Phillips, I'm still thinking Khalil Mack. I don't think Hassan Reddick is that likely just because of the distraction that'll probably come with him. And while I don't know what his locker room presence is, I don't know if he's a cancer. I don't know the guy. I'm not in the locker room with him. I know that right now he's a distraction. And he could be, and that's the same thing that for Jalen Carter, that I didn't think we were going to draft him. It's a distraction. And even though he'll leave the Jets and go to a new team, you got to give him a new deal. And I think even if he puts his head down and works, I still think it is, I'm telling you, man, I still think it's a distraction as to why you wouldn't bring in Hassan Reddick. But until he's gone, and every so often, I'm going to make a video about him if something changes. You know what I mean? So I think that James Houston, his time with the Lions is over. That's just what I think. Sorry about this, guys. What are we doing here? So that's just what I think personally, that we are going to wind up moving on from James Houston. And I think that he is going to be part of a trade package at the trade deadline for a pass rusher of elite caliber. Or you're talking about above average to elite. I think it became obvious last week that we needed somebody to help Aiden. And this week, I mean, think about the last 2 games from Aiden Hutchinson. 5.5 sacks. He got 1 last week, right? And he got none yesterday. But you look at it, and he helped create the sacks that we got. But just that dominant force, we don't have a dominant force opposite him. Whatever side he's on, he was getting double teamed, and I saw a triple team a couple times as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How are you feeling about James Houston? Have you converted to my side? And it's not that I never liked James Houston. I just wasn't that impressed. I wasn't that impressed because the dude, I think what it was for us was, wow, because nobody was talking about him from draft day to the Buffalo Bill game. Malcolm Rodriguez was the guy we were talking about. They weren't even talking about James Houston in minicamp, in training camp, in preseason. Nobody was talking about James Houston. It was not until the Buffalo Bill game where you come out and you sack Josh Allen 2 times, and it's the first time, and we was like, oh, who is this guy? So now all of a sudden we're like, oh, he's the next. And I don't think it was ever that. I think that year was an anomaly. I think it was a fluke. I'm gonna just keep it a buck, man. That's just but James Houston, man, he could thrive somewhere else, and I think it's time. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And remember, this channel is brought to you by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. You could be anywhere else on YouTube, but you choose to rock with me. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions. Hopefully now you get the reference.